Abari, sports fans. In our lineup tonight, the right wing is not all right, GOP voters are not all white, and the Republicans who might run for president are taking flight. But first, on day 2 of the great reddening of America, our elected Republican leaders are showing that they're more in sync than Justin Timberlake and Joey Fatone. Yesterday it was Mitch McConnell, and today it was John Boehner's turn to fall in line. 2 leaders, 1 script. Take a look.
I believe that the president continues to act on his own. He is going to poison the well.
The president choosing to do a lot of things unilaterally on immigration would be a big mistake.
When you play with matches, you take the risk of burning yourself. And he's going to burn himself.
It's like waving a red flag in front of a bull to say, if you guys don't do what I want, I'm going to do it on my own.
The American people made it clear Election Day. They want to get things done.
The American people have changed the Senate. So I think we have an obligation to change the behavior of the Senate and to begin to function again.
All right, Mark, so the big question here, can Boehner and McConnell remain as joined at the hip in the future as they did today?
This is a big turtle on a fence post moment. My suspicion is that these guys have been strategizing for a while. Joint op-ed in the Wall Street Journal today, on message, poll-tested and smart. They're not talking about social issues. They're not talking about issues that divide the Republican Party. They're talking about accountability. They're talking about issues like not on immigration, on issues like the economy. They're being very smart and disciplined. They're not being angry. They're not going to impeach the president. They're not going to fail to raise the debt ceiling. Right now, this is a smart inside game and a surprisingly smart outside game from these 2 guys.
It's been impressive. It's only 24 hours, really, and so it's early days. You know, McConnell, I think, has the easier task. He's got a few rabble-rousers. I don't think many of these incoming senators are going to be problematic for him. Ted Cruz will be a thorn in his side going forward, but he can manage his caucus pretty well. Down the road, the question is Boehner and that Republican caucus, that Tea Party caucus in the House, which is still quite large and still quite fractious. You know, on something like immigration, the problem's not going to be on McConnell's side. The problem's going to be on Boehner's side, and whether Boehner can work his will over there and stay with McConnell on message and on substance.
You've heard no talk of orphanages.
No.
You've not heard from some of the more excitable and far-right members of the Republican conference in either body with any way that's distracted from their message. This is a very big moment for the party, and so far they're handling it really well.
So far, 2 key words, though.
All right, so while the congressional Republicans have been vocalizing, as we just discussed, in perfect harmony, the right-wing opinion meisters since Tuesday have been singing from a different score that sounds more like outtakes from Metal Machine music.
The Republican Party was not elected to compromise. The Republican Party was not elected to sit down and work together.
They just surrendered the power of the purse to Barack Obama. I told you the other day. They are working behind the scenes on a budget with the administration. They're going to say this demonstrates bipartisanship and that they can govern. But you're screwed.
I think it could get ugly. I think we're in the most dangerous period now than the Republic has been in since the Civil War.
It is very simple what that mandate is. It is to stop Barack Obama. It is to stop the Democrat Party. There is no other reason why Republicans were elected yesterday.
If they don't do their job and put out a competing agenda, they're going to lose in 2016. They have work to do.
I agree, and I would tell right-wingers, stay paranoid.
Those people have no incentive to have compromise with the president. Quite the contrary.
No, Barack Obama has been good for business for them.
The history of the Republican Party of late has been defined by congressional leaders being afraid of talk radio and Fox. Will the establishment, Mitch McConnell, John Boehner first and foremost, be able to withstand the pressure from that kind of cacophony, which will only build as compromise with the president comes?
Well, I'm a big fan of history, as you know, and I can't find any evidence in the historical record to suggest that they will or can. These guys, collectively, individually and collectively, have been the biggest and one of the most pernicious forces in our politics for a long time. And there's some counterparts of theirs on the left, but they are a very, very loud voice. And they have repeatedly over the last 20 years, and in only growing strength, they have put pressure on, destructive pressure on Republican leaders and establishmentarians who want to get things done. The pressure has been intense, and they have almost always capitulated. The leaders, that is, not these guys.
Boehner and McConnell, as much as Dick Cheney, is not afraid of the flying monkeys. They're not. And they have disdain for them privately. They say it all the time to people. And when McConnell yesterday said, we're not going to have a debt ceiling crisis, we're not going to have government shutdowns, that sent a loud message. These guys and gals can attack Boehner and McConnell all they want. I don't think that they personally will be intimidated by it. Well, question is, will people pressure them?
Oh, there's no doubt. I don't mean personally. I don't think that either one of them is intimidated personally. And I think McConnell, as I said, kind of relates to the first topic. I think McConnell can probably manage it within his caucus. Boehner has, though he has no respect for them personally, is not intimidated personally, he has not been very good at managing the elements in his caucus that are really afraid of those guys and are really motivated by what those guys say. That is going to be a huge test going forward, because those members of his caucus who do listen to these guys and worry about the voters who listen to these guys have been a bad force in the Republican House, and Boehner has not been great at dealing with them in the past. All right. It is the most wonderful time of the year. If you're a Republican who wants to run for president, that is Chris Christie, Ted Cruz, Jeb Bush, Rand Paul, Marco Rubio, Ben Carson, yes, even Ben Carson. Take a look at this video promoting a Ben Carson documentary, a forthcoming documentary. I want to make it clear to all our viewers, we did not add the soundtrack to this video.
I do like that whole thing.
Yes, putting aside all the obvious jokes about flatlining, the question is, which of these potential 2016 presidential candidates is most shrewdly taking advantage of this post-midterm moment?
I think two people have done the best for themselves so far. Yeah. Again, it's early, but the momentum matters now. One is Chris Christie, who reportedly is already meeting with his donors and figuring out how to take that victory lap for his RGA successes. So key, because I think Chris Christie can be surprisingly strong. If Jeb Bush either hesitates about getting in or doesn't get in, right, I think Chris Christie could be the guy who raises tens of millions of dollars quickly. The other one's Rand Paul, because he's continued with some social media work to be the main candidate, saying being in the face of Hillary Clinton. And a lot of Republicans want somebody, first and foremost, who will take her on. He's been aggressive about that so far. So I'd say those two guys.
Yeah, and I'd say that Paul in that case, I agree with you about Rand Paul. I mean, Christie, doing a lot of behind-the-scenes work, meeting with donors, doing all kinds of stuff. He's obviously capitalizing in a kind of relatively low-key way, which is strange for Chris Christie. But Rand Paul is really this mixture, and I think both of us agree he's probably not going to be the Republican nominee. But the combination of him talking about expanding the Republican coalition, reaching out to groups that Republicans haven't traditionally appealed to, he's been doing that a lot in the last couple days. He's also, at the same time, as you said, got twinned with that is this anti-Hillary Clinton, very sharp, and that is also resonating throughout the party. In a weird way, this is the place where Rand Paul is kind of leading the way. The party right now is going after Hillary Clinton. The Obama agenda is the Clinton agenda, and Paul sounds like, to a lot of people in the business and outside the business, like he's leading that chorus. That's a good place for him to be right now.
The person we haven't heard from is Hillary Clinton.
Right.
It's going to be interesting because Republicans are making a big deal about she campaigned for a lot of people who lost, as did every Democrat.
Yeah.
But the question
is, a lot of Democrats lost.
She comes
Very
out,
few won.
She's going to have to enunciate, as President Obama did yesterday, what's her lessons learned publicly from the midterms. It's going to be interesting to see now that she's not out there campaigning for people. All right. So in our ritualistic post-midterm, post-mortem, we all go through that. We found something we think is rather extraordinary in the exit polls. In some of these races, non-white voters gave substantial chunks of their support to some Republican candidates. Two examples we want to talk about. First, in Ohio, John Kasich was running for election as governor there. He got 26% of the African-American vote, according to the exit poll, up from 8% 4 years ago, and that's no accident. We'll talk about why. In Texas, Greg Abbott, who was a Republican nominee, got 44% of the Hispanic vote. That compares to Rick Perry, who got 38% of the Hispanic vote when he was the gubernatorial nominee 4 years ago. And this comes after Democratic forces from Obama world this year made a very strong push in Texas to help win more support from Latino voters. So, John, those are two examples, pretty key ones from important states. What does that tell you, if anything, about the prospects Republicans have of winning the White House in 2016?
Well, not that much. These are kind of unique cases. But, first of all, look, I mean, John Kasich has shown to people, and you can look at Mitch Daniels in Indiana 4 years ago, did the same thing. I believe Mitch Daniels had more than a third of African-American voters in Indiana. In those big Midwestern states, if you're a Republican governor who departs from right-wing orthodoxy and some of the more right extreme positions, and you have social programs and you reach out to communities of African Americans, you can be popular. Daniels did it, Kasich's done it now. Down in Texas, you've got a case where Wendy Davis, who became the poster girl for kind of abortion on demand, that is not a great message for Hispanics who are quite culturally conservative. Even if they like Democrats more on immigration, they don't like the far left cultural posturing, and Abbott, like Perry previously, capitalized on that there.
The Democratic Party has a lot of thinking about for 2016 about what a post-Obama Democratic Party is. Those numbers are really cautionary. I think they're a big deal because it shows that Democrats do not have a hold on these constituencies.